Welcome to the Hutchinson House Reacts. Thank you so much for stopping by. Trump hasn't even been president for 2 weeks, and so much has happened in 2 weeks. A lot of good things, a lot of not so good things. I mean, very terrible tragedies, such as the 2 plane crashes that I'm sure you have heard about by now. The one DC plane crash taking 67 lives, and the other plane crash in Philadelphia taking 6 lives. These are horrible tragedies. And I'm grateful that we have a president who's willing to acknowledge and bless the souls of the lives that have been lost, while also looking into why these things happened so that they don't happen again, because he believes in safety first. Watch Sarah Haines from The View completely miss the mark because she has Trump Derangement Syndrome. She doesn't understand how good instincts actually work. She instead completely bashes Trump for having impulses. She says that he doesn't have impulse control. No, his impulses are to mourn and then look at what the problem is. That's what a good president does. They probably aren't used to it because Biden would probably take a nap, have other people take the reins, not worry about it, not investigate. But no, Trump investigates. Sarah Haines has a trouble with that. Joy Reid has a problem with that. They don't want him to investigate anything. They want him to sit back and take a nap on the beach. Well, he's not Joe Biden. He investigates. He looks at common sense. He figures out what's going on and he weighs in. He did not say that he knows what happened. He looks and investigates and gets to the bottom of situations. But watch Joy Reid, we're going to get to her in a minute, but first Sarah Haines completely missed the mark on what his good instincts are.
Beyond the egregious and illogical jump to DEI was the continual and predictable lack of impulse control by someone with the largest mic and the largest audience of anyone in the world. And while the bodies were being recovered, when he said these remarks, the bodies were not even all recovered. So step one in a tragedy is to mourn, to wait for these families. There are people that still don't even.
What happened to thoughts and prayers? That's usually the first.
That's only when children are shot.
There are people, though, that are being notified that their loved one's not coming home. This is not the time. Let's let all of that dust settle. It's like the wildfires when they started playing. While they're burning, people are trying to blame game it. I think Trump also posted soon after this tragedy occurred and said that this seems like it should have been avoidable. The worst thing you can say to someone who just lost a loved one is without any evidence that it could have been avoided. Mm-hmm. And let us remember that even the most highly trained and skilled workers in this world, from surgeons to, I guess you could say even recreationally, race car drivers, everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. We don't know why this accident happened. And the loose way he speaks about it without any knowledge is heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Disgraceful.
Okay. So we already planned on that. We can expect that response from her, right? But step one is yes, mourn. And then let's look at what happened. That is step two. If anybody has a child, you know that. If they hurt themselves, we don't just go, oh, well, we'll figure it out in a couple months. Now let's mourn the owie. No, I don't care. If they broke their arm, they hurt themselves, they almost died, God forbid, you're going to say, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Now let's look at what happened so that we can make sure that everybody is safe in moving forward, A, and B, to make sure that if there was a culprit, that we can take care of that person. That is common sense. That is practical. But these ladies don't, I guess, they're so used to let's investigate 15, 20, 1,000 years from now. That doesn't help. No, that's not appropriate. What is appropriate is exactly what Donald Trump did. Acknowledge the families, acknowledge this great tragedy, send love and blessings to them. And I love how Joy Behar, makes fun of the thoughts and prayers. Of course, thoughts and prayers work, but they want to bash that. Common sense says, let's look at the problem and let's look at how we can solve the problem so that more lives aren't lost, so that more devastation doesn't occur. But of course, it's lost on them. Let's hear what Trump actually said and why this could have been a DEI fault.
We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence. And we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel.
Okay, this is off of the FAA job requirements fact sheet. Frequently asked questions on the FAA application process, right? Number 8, why do I have to provide information about my race, sex, and national origin? This is not required, but it is extremely helpful in determining the diversity of applicant pools. The federal government is committed to a workforce that reflects the national diversity, and agencies work very hard to make sure their employment systems treat all applicants fairly. The FAA asks job applicants to complete the self-identification, race, sex, and national origin to make sure the applicant pools are diverse. The information is not included in your application package and is not made available to anyone involved in the hiring process. Providing such information is totally voluntary. No individual personnel selections are made based off of this information. Then that's a moot point. Then why have it, right? It doesn't make sense. So again, Trump is bringing in common sense back into all of these agencies, which is a very good thing. Why on one hand they say you have to put this, but it's voluntary, but it's how we pick better, but we don't really pick better because of this. So it's like, well, which one is it? Let's go back to merit. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments if you would agree that jobs should be based off of merit, not skin color. I think it's actually racist to go off skin color.
Both for us to be here. Representative Davis, I want to start with you and let you talk about your community and how they are handling this, and also how you feel about the President of the United States weighing in and giving his own diagnosis of this crash rather than waiting for the NTSB.
Joy, that's literally his job. As the President of the United States, it's his job to look at all the facts and weigh out and see what's going on, because he has got to make decisions that affect everybody. So this is the difference between Biden and Trump. Trump knows all parts of the job. Biden, he didn't even know what room he was in. Watch Joy Reid, complete ludicrous statement here.
It since be offensive to other Black Hawk, pilots if Donald Trump is trying to tell them he knows better what this pilot should have done, and he knows better whether or not a diverse person has, the right to fly a Black Hawk or a plane.
He never has said that a diverse person doesn't have the right to fly a Black Hawk plane. He's never said that ever. He said the most competent, the most super genius, That's who needs to be in air traffic control. That's who needs to fly planes. It's a very high stress job. That's what he said. Let's go for merit over skin color. And then she just twisted that.
Well, Donald Trump knows about as much as about airspace and aviation as he does about bleach and COVID.
Okay, again, they don't listen to anything about bleach and COVID is what she's going to say, right? Listen, when you actually own planes and you fly a lot for a living and you own helicopters, you are going to know a thing or two about aviation. And especially somebody like Donald Trump, because he doesn't just sit back. He talks to people. I'm sure he talks to the pilots of these planes. I'm sure he studies them when he purchases his planes. He studies what kind of plane it is and what's going on. That's an absurd notion that she says this. And of course, we all know he didn't say to drink bleach, but they don't understand nuance because they don't listen. They just look for ways that they can run on rhetoric.
Okay, he's not somebody that we should be listening to in that manner. And it is offensive. I will say that, aviation in general, and people need to know this, becoming a pilot or an air traffic controller, there are very objective standards for that.
She talks about Trump being offensive. And now watch her as she offends all of us in describing that, the switches don't know the difference between a man or woman. Nobody is arguing that. Nobody's arguing that the switches on an airplane know skin color. That has nothing to do with anything. You guys are the ones that keep talking about skin color and gender. We're not. We're saying merit, merit, merit. That's all. Hello, but watch her condescend your intelligence.
Aircraft does not know if you're a man or a woman. The simulator does not know if you're a man or a woman. You can either put the plane, land it or not. You either know the emergency procedures or not. You either are able to fly that thing within the regulations or not. And
unfortunately, something went wrong, and it was the or not. 2 times this week, planes crashed, which is unprecedented. And that's why when we have a common sense president, he goes, what happened? What happened? Right? But they want to make this all about race, gender, and skin color because that's what they know how to do. So Trump is actually not making it about that. That's why he's anti-DEI. People will never get it.
To me, this whole idea about, minorities or diversity being a problem in aviation, this is probably of all of the career paths you can choose, the one that has the most objective standards to qualify.
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to give JD Vance.
And that's why it shouldn't be anything to do with skin color. That's why we should just eliminate DEI because, again, you're basically saying it should go off of merit. And we agree. So let's take out skin color. Let's take out gender because it has nothing to do with that. You just proved the point, right? Nobody has said that race flies a plane. You guys are saying that. Something went wrong, horribly wrong. And out of honor to the families and the people who've passed on, we got to figure out what happened. I'm curious to know what you think. Do you think that there was another person on the helicopter that we don't know? Was it hijacked? Why is it that the air traffic control said, do you see the other plane in sight? And the helicopter said yes, and it still happened. And then this other plane crashed in Philadelphia. What happened there? This is just my opinion, but I think the reason why there's been probably a lower amount of staffing in the FAA is because of these weird requirements. Why even have number 8 on there? If it's not important, it's not important. Why have that? Why do we have to make sure that we're filling a diverse, and maybe they didn't have the diversity they wanted, and that's why. Or maybe that brings down morale. Karoline Leavitt said it perfectly in her briefing when she mentions exactly what is important when we're on a plane. Watch this.
Well, the president is intent on ensuring that we are increasing staffing at these agencies. And that's why he signed a very strong executive order on his second day in office, immediately terminating DEI hiring practices at the FAA. He also, following the tragic crash, as you all know, in the Oval Office yesterday, signed a memorandum directing an immediate assessment of the FAA to ensure the federal government is maintaining the highest personnel and aviation safety standards. And I would also just say there's a cultural piece to this as well. If you are an American who has spent many years studying aviation and you graduate from school and you're an air traffic controller based on skill and merit, and then you apply for a job and you're forced to fill out a biographical questionnaire asking you the color of your skin and asking you where you're from in details that aren't relevant at all to the job description, I think that deteriorates the morale of people in this industry. And if you talk to people in this industry, they'll tell you that. In fact, many of them filed a lawsuit against the FAA a couple of years ago under Joe Biden's administration because they were denied positions because of this DEI hiring practice that was putting identity politics over merit and skills. That's unacceptable. And I think just to put a fine point on this, because this is the third or fourth question I've answered on this subject, when you are flying on an airplane with your loved ones, which every one of us in this room has, do you pray that your plane lands safely and gets you to your destination, or do you pray that the pilot has a certain skin color? I think we all know the answer to that question, and as President Trump said yesterday, it's common sense.
Exactly. We're not praying for a specific skin color. We're praying that this pilot knows how to fly the plane. Thank God we're bringing common sense back to the White House. It's already in there. Thank God. And I know you have common sense, but for the people that don't seem to get it and think that Trump is still a racist and all the things that they like to make up about him, this is why he likes to get as much information as he can quickly, especially in the wake of tragedy, so that he can move forward in a competent manner that makes the health, wealth, safety a priority. What do you think? Do you think that DEI should DIE because it harms more people than it helps, including the people of diverse nature? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know, do you think there was foul play? And this isn't to dishonor, again, the people who've lost their lives or people who've lost loved ones. This is to honor them. Asking questions and getting to the bottom of it and signing executive orders that help the safety and moving forward. There were 3 pilots on the helicopter, but do you think there was a 4th? What do you think happened with the Philadelphia crash? My heart goes out to these people. This is so, so sad. Thank you so much for being here. If you believe in common sense, please do subscribe. The more of us having conversations like this, the better.